still going? Okay.
Good.
So there we go. And so I think the real beauty of this is that Ben is still very much involved in the congregation. But he knows that with me, if it's ever between one or the other, it's always the mission. And that's the priority. And so it gives him a lot of flexibility and permission. And it also takes away, I think, the angst that a lot of congregations, when they get a pastor to send out on mission, is they send him out. Well, he's supposed to be starting a mission. They're expecting to have a church. He's got 2 or 3 years. They're very patient. They understand. And even if things are going slow, they still see him. They still love him. And so the people in the church that are going with him on these, they understand that. And so I think it allows us to kind of get the best of both worlds, but we understand that mission is the priority. So, yeah. Okay. Great question.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we're going. And
You want me to jump in, or you want?
yeah, why don't we go, and we'll save our video for last if we have that.
that's fine.
We have a funny video we want to show you, but we're going to let Ben jump in.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thanks, John. And he's a great coach, guys. Love working with John, and super supportive congregation. John, what button do I hit for the slides? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna start shoveling here. So just go like this, just to stop me for questions. And so, really, this is kind of a graphic of where we're going. And guys, I'm gonna be honest. We've only been doing this for a little over a year, and so we're actually right here. So we're emerging right now, one house church, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But this first stage is just the team focused, missional praying, listening, gift assessing. It was easier for me because I had a year in Katy already, but essentially you're going to be wanting to go to different congregations. The one that's funding you, of course, is great. Network of Christians within the neighborhood. And I did a period, guys, of just talking to folks about what we were doing. And, hey, is this something you would like to do? And you have to be kind of selective about it. It's not for everybody, right? And so, but especially in the gift assessing and forming the apostolic team, we really communicated, I think, well at first that you don't necessarily have to have the gift of evangelism, okay, to join in the team. There's a very wide range of gifts running from hospitality to prayer to evangelism to organization, administration. You really want to try to do a good job of flowing the gifts out to the team. But we want to work together, right? And so my wife's a better host than I am. She doesn't want to really go there maybe sometimes with folks about Jesus. I do. I'm all about it. But she is really good about preparing the place, not just in the home, but also in the third place. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too, that you can host in your home, but you can also create a haven at a brewery. You can create a haven at a coffee shop. You can foster a haven in the park. And just really, there's some good things there. But then just listening, listening to the community, listening to one another, doing some mission mapping next. And so after you form the team, Spirit-led direction, we started going into mission mapping. Just where are we going to start this? And the first one that came to mind was the Maddox, where Jenny and I actually live. It's an apartment complex. That's been really our first map that we're really pouring into as a team, as a couple, to emerge one of our first house churches there. And so that's second bubble. I really want to talk to you guys about the blessed rhythms. I think that for me this past few months, learning about blessed rhythms and fruit to root has been so great. What's the first thing that we think about when we think discipleship? Usually it's, how can I change? Right? And we focus on behavior modification a lot of the time. And that's fine. Are you good at change when you're following Jesus? Absolutely. You're going to. But what's so amazing about the blessed rhythms and about the fruit to root exercises is the focus isn't so much on behavior modification as it is belief change. Okay, and so this is Jeff Vanderstelt from Soma School and Casey Underground, really focusing in on, guys, and trust me when I say this from the scriptures. The man says, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." And so with Blessed Rhythms, with Fruit to Root, we really focus in on, Lord, I want to change. I want to grow in these gifts that you've given me for the work of your mission, but I'm struggling with this area of unbelief. And so how can we process that as community, heal one another, and go to the root of why we're feeling indifferent or why we're feeling discouraged? And a lot of the times we're maybe believing things about God that aren't true. And as a community, as a team, being vulnerable with that and then going to the scriptures and affirming to one another creedally, who is God and what is he doing right now? That is going back to the vision, going back to the mission, and you got to be doing that time and time again. And so we call it going fruit to root. And I'm going to talk to you guys about it. I think it's a great thing. I think it'll bless you and your team, and we'll talk about the blessed rhythms as well. People of peace, so just gatekeepers. You guys know. You guys read, I'm sure, Greg Finke. Just folks that might not be on the apostolic team, but folks in the neighborhood who are Christians, maybe, and but they got a social network, and they're partnering with you. They are convinced that, okay, this emerging church you guys got going on, I get it. We're participating in reaching the unbaptized. I got some folks. I will try to make a time, place where we can introduce you to one another. And so reaching out to people of peace. And from there, the next arrow, we get to befriending, we get to networking, caring and listening, and just inviting. And so the invitation isn't so much come to church. It's come meet my friends. Come meet my friends. And so come meet my friends over coffee. This was a great conversation. I got someone else in my life who would love to have this kind of conversation with you. Would you like to meet them? Exchanging numbers, all that good stuff. And then we have party, we have discovery, and we have discipleship. And so party, again, is just that befriending. We do apartment life events for our neighborhood, do different things in the community, just together to eat, to grow together in relationship. But then discovery, after you maybe have had that spiritual conversation, we have discovery nights, and we're having one actually at the end of this month. Our liturgy is very simple. It's just food, friendship, and faith conversation. And so we talk around one story from Jesus. And honestly, guys, we don't always say we believe Jesus is the Savior of the world the first time. We'll sometimes say Jesus is very wise. And we just really enjoy listening to him. Would you like to ponder a story from him over some food, friendship? And so we've been going through the parables. And then I'm training Matt right now to be able to do this. He's one of the team members, but right now it's me. So I do write a focus and function statement, and I preach. But it's different. I don't get up and preach. It's conversational, very dialogical. We're sharing perspectives on the parable, and then I'll talk at the end about 5 minutes and point to the cross, empty tomb. And then we have a time of response. And people struggle, right? There's so many layers to it. And so we listen to one another's struggles with the gospel, and we just leave room for the Spirit to work. And then some people move. Maybe they were, and you maybe have read Don Everts from Reluctant Witness. Some people maybe are receptive, right? No one comes to Discovery who are unreceptive. Usually they stay at the parties, and that's fine. But receptive folks, seeking folks, maybe they were receptive, now they're seeking. So they move from discovery now to discipleship. And so that's clarifying what the gospel is, who Jesus is, what it means to follow him. And we have some folks in that camp as well. But again, that's this circle right here, planting the gospel. And then we're going to, then planting the church. So when we coach, like Melissa, Chris, who are with me on the team, or if I'm coaching Matt, we're coaching them on how to really do these invitations in their spheres of influence, at work, and it has borne some great fruit. But again, just focusing on sending the church and teaching them how to not just invite to our home group, but to foster a church experience where and when they can as well. And so again, this is in the house. Right now it's in my unit, but we've met in parks. We met in the brewery. It's amazing. You can just Ralph Moore is from Exponential. He one time took his church to the city, and he said, "This is your cathedral right here." And I love that story. I think that's great. This is your church. So on the street, look at where people are congregating. I think it's such a great shift. And then gospel fluency. We'll talk about that a little bit too, where we are deeply listening to folks and learning about what they worship, learning about what they love and struggle with. And instead of maybe giving our personal testimony, we're learning together how to speak Jesus actually into their struggles, into their desires, into their joys, longings, really. And so that's we'll talk a little bit about gospel fluency. So we're right here, guys, right now. So we don't have this all down. It's a journey. So is a new community of new believers. So they are unbaptized. The neighbors we have right now, they do not believe. They are receptive and seeking to the conversation. But we are right now here. And so we're processing gospel together. And we're trying to just pray in the Spirit, wait for the Spirit to move, to convert, to bring into baptism. And I'll share some stories. We've had some great things happen, but for a little bit later I'll go into that. And then just ongoing formation. So they've moved from discovery to discipleship, and so how do we start forming them? And so the church emerges, new disciples, and this is key right here. So as people come from a place of unbelief to belief, it's their church. We are moving to self-identify as church. So it's very much dependent upon the Spirit to bring about conversion, to bring about baptism, and then to bring about the self-identification of church. And what's amazing about that is when people, our neighbors, we're praying, self-identify as church, this is our community. There's an ownership there. And as we start laying the pieces of DNA and sending, it's just, it'll be a lot, we believe, easier. And so just adding on pieces. So again, our house church experience right now, food, faith, conversation, friendship. We have a time of burden bearing where we just kind of bear one another's burdens. But as pieces get added, hopefully some singing, hopefully some more creeds, hopefully Lord's Supper, tithing, all those things. And then from here, raising up leaders from within the apostolic team to have ongoing coaching with the leaders to shepherd the existing congregation gathering, but also now taking folks and innovating together and doing more multiplication, manifesting church in just different ways, and following the Spirit, appointing leaders, and then new churches, and contextualizing in different parts of Katy within our city. And so that's kind of the long game, and it's a long pace, and it's slow, but this is kind of where we're going briefly. Okay? So I just really, again, super brief, this is, again, really tied to sending supportive congregation like Memorial. And so they support us financially, but also spiritually and relationally. Planting is a lonely job, and it can be wrought with much discouragement and disenchantment. And also just being a missionary, right? I mean, it's fraught with so much discouragement, not just right with the lack of unbelief, but my own inability to actually bear the fruit I want to see in my life. And so you need support, you need that spiritual encouragement daily. So I love this. It just does not rely on building programs or buying land. It is simple, it is cheap, and it is reproducible. And I think those three things are super good and scalable. You're just able to really coherently and concretely create things that people can buy into and do together. Ordinary rhythms with extraordinary hope. It's very unimpressive. It really is. It's just we're having food together. We are having community together. We are caring for one another, listening to each other's stories, longings, desires, and getting to know folks. And yeah, that's our liturgy right now. Food, friendship, faith, conversation. And then planting people with the gospel where, the invitation is not come to church, but come meet my friends. And I'll talk a little bit about Alan Hirsch's quote. He calls it the fishnet of friendships. It's awesome. So Alan was reading one time the story where Jesus tells Peter, right, come and I will make you fishers of men. Yeah, and so Alan said, boy, if I was there, right, what would I say to Jesus? Well, where's my fishnet, right? And he was processing that, and he said, the Spirit led me to consider that, Jesus does give us a fishnet, and it's the people around us, right? And it's the people he's given us to partner with. And through our partnerships and through opening doorways to meet the unbaptized, it's almost like a fishnet, catching people. And sometimes that doesn't look like your own life. Sometimes it looks like 3 people working together just to net in this person, right? And we've seen that happen. It's great. And so, the home, the bar, the coffee shop, the park, that's our church. Those are our cathedrals. Those are our buildings. And so they're not intimidating, hopefully. There are places where people are already going and living and doing life together. And so we're wanting to plant the church in those places with the gospel.
John, if I can just say one thing on the reproducible. One of the questions I get is, so how do you keep funding a missionary pastor in this regard? And so I think number one is that he's very much a part of Memorial. So Memorial is thrilled to have him and continue to serve, even though mission is the priority. But going beyond, as he creates more and more of these small little house churches, and they don't have to be huge, but as they form, and those churches take on an identity of the church, which is also going to have the sending DNA and has mission, just as a congregation now would send a portion to district, just take a small portion of that and it starts funding a missionary. And the goal that we would have is that we create enough of those that all those little networks would actually support him. Then we can get another one of him and create more of these little networks all around the area. And honestly, funding the missionary is the only cost that goes with this. So.
There you go. Yep. Oh, okay, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're on payroll?
I am, sir. Yeah, through Memorial.
And
Yep.
then the money that's like to go out to eat,
Yep.
to provide
Yep.
the outreach
Yeah.
is funded through the
Yeah,
church
yeah.
itself.
And there's different streams for that too. So Eric Holler was, he's not at our church anymore. He just went to Dallas. Come on now. But he did just some artwork, and he said, Ben, love what you're doing, and everything that I make here, it's going right to your fund.
So it's
So
not grant funded, it's payroll.
exactly, yeah. And then I got a couple other streams, district for sure, and then Apartment Life pays for some of our rent, so that's really good too. And
We did get a couple grants from the district, but
Yep.
but generally it's covering him, and the expenses that he has aren't huge. It's we give him a monthly stipend of $100 or something like that for doing meals, and because he's a lot of going out to eat, so we cover things like that.
Yep. I covered. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
So maybe this question will be answered later, but as you, Pastor, were explaining the multiplication of these kind of like house churches that Ben is directly involved in, is the long-range goal that this multiplying number of smaller groups, house churches, what is the end game for those smaller groups that are being formed right now?
Yeah, the end game would be, of course, self-identifying as church, right? Having the gospel present, but then having ascending DNA. So everything, all the pathways are very, those are the things that are pretty much the same. We're always going to be wanting to push a DNA of this gathering is forming, but we know from the get-go that there will be some people eventually sent to do another plan. And so, and again, that process of raising up a local leader to shepherd then that church is going to be something that, again, is part of the future conversations. But that's going to be, part of our DNA, if that makes sense. So we're hoping that it's always ongoing. Yeah.
I don't know that there's a specific end game, because the idea is that these would continue to multiply.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the scriptures, you see multiple times in Paul's letters, he talks about the church in your house. Yeah. And so if you go to Paul's methods, the church is in these houses. It's not what we have now. So we don't have a vision of these new communities of new believers to become like Memorial Lutheran Church.
So they may or may not at some point choose to rent space
Yeah.
for ministry, right?
Yeah,
That would be
yeah.
great if they wanted to,
If
absolutely.
they want to.
If they want to. Yeah.
So some of these, in the long run, might stay as small groups of 12 to 20, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
not need to rent any space, but
No.
rather be.
But be church together. Yeah, yeah. But have that DNA where they are seeing themselves as part of God's story of redemption and looking to ways to innovate how to reach new people, and that might look like splitting.
Yeah.
And going and doing a couple of different things and all that. Yeah, so, yep, yeah, absolutely.
One last question. Do they identify with the church at all, or do you just, are
No.
they just branches that morph off into?
Yeah, so what separates us from a missional community is usually that the missional community serves as a funnel
Right.
to the mother church,
Right.
right? And so we Memorial might see some numerical growth from this, but really Memorial's after kingdom growth. Yeah, see here.
That's the best way.
And so, yeah, so it's very going to be decentralized, yeah, but it'll also, in itself, in a sense, have that DNA of, in the future, boy, we might split off too. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would see the church in Philippi, the church in
Yeah.
Thessalonica. They
Yeah.
knew of the church in Antioch,
Right.
that the church in Antioch had sent Paul out there.
Right.
So I think they will know and understand that
Right.
there's somebody supporting that. But the goal is not to draw them to us. The idea is for them to be church where they are.
And that's a blessing with that understanding, because sometimes the mothership, or when they birth a baby, if the baby gets too big, or conversion, sometimes they get this real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
John, what's our cutoff time? is it noon?
Yeah, we got about 25
All right, give me 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes. I just want to share the blessed rhythms and fruit to root. If anything, take it home. I think it's great, guys, and just see how this looks like in your life. If you don't take anything today, because it's been a game changer for us. And then I do want to just talk about shift listening versus support listening in our work of evangelism. Okay, just those three things. So the blessed rhythms. I stole this. This isn't me, okay? This is from KC Underground in Kansas City. But it's an acronym, bless, and it's just a way of life. It is a way of life. So as you gather with your team of your like-minded individuals who want to reach the unbaptized, they really lay out these rhythms here. It starts with breathe in prayer and breathe out prayer. Moved over there. Good. Just, again, the Greg Finke stuff. Lord, where are you at work? How can we join you? Prayers of examine. Is such a great from Ignatius from Loyola. Just at the end of your day. Processing your day together in community. I do this sometimes with my buddy over the phone, and we just ask together, Lord, where have you shown up today? Where have I been disconnected from your desires? And doing that daily habit of examine is so good. As you pray, discerning kairos moments. Those are God-appointed times when He's answering your prayers. I didn't want to go to the gym, but I felt a pull by the Spirit. Go to the gym, Ben. And lo and behold, kairos moment, right? A guy's there. We have a good 2-hour conversation. I didn't want to go there. I knew, though, the Spirit was drawing me. Where are my prayers being answered? How do I know what God is up to in my life? Pay attention to the people He puts in your path, Henri Nouwen quote. And just breathing in those prayers, missional prayers, and doing that not just by yourself, but with one or two people who just want to reach the lost with you. And how can we start that? Okay? And then listening. Listening to God, our community, and each other. Support listening is, I think, greater than shift listening. Tell me more about your story. Heart passions. What do you love to do? What are you into? What do you love about it? I'm going to do an example of support listening versus shift listening really quick. So, Clinton, what's your favorite color? Orange. My favorite color is red. And I'll tell you a little bit, red for me has been just such a game changer in my life. And I have so many friends, too, that appreciate red. And I'll tell you, red apples are my favorite item that are red. So I just did shift listening, okay? So I asked Clinton a question, but what did I do? It's all about really me, okay? And so support listening. Clinton, what's your favorite color? Orange. What are some of your favorite items, right, that have the color orange in them?
Tigers,
Okay, there you go. Right? What has that done for your life, right? And just, those questions of getting after him and getting into kind of his life, his story, his longings, and his desires there. And struggles, joys, and just hearing his story. And so the thing with evangelism I've been learning the past year is we sometimes do shift listening with evangelism. I love a personal testimony. It's encouraging, right? It can really do numbers for folks. But when you listen to someone and then you say, "Well, this is what Jesus means for me," I think that's okay. But I think support listening is so much better, where you're actually listening so well into someone's longings and desires that you can just speak a story of Jesus that's prophetic. That's a word on target. And you think about the prophet Elisha. There was a woman who lost her son, went to Elisha, and it's an amazing part. Elisha's this powerful prophet, and he says, "The Lord has hidden this thing from me. Let her speak." And just a powerful moment in Elisha's ministry about just how can we know how to preach the gospel, to speak of Jesus in such a way people will hear until we're really listening to their stories and taking a long time to do support listening. So what do you love to do? What are you into? What do you love about it? Hopes? What are your dreams? What would you like to see happen in your life? And just some deeper questions that you can do with anybody to kind of get into more of their story. What would you change about your life? What would you change about this neighborhood, third space? Just some good things.
And we do that. Ben, this is what you're training the apostolic team that's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we don't have a lot of time, and I'm really passionate about this, and I'd love for you guys to take some of this home. E is for eat, so just hospitality and mission, throwing parties, opening our homes for missionary encounters. I love this Rosaria Butterfield quote she wrote, "Gospel comes with a house key." We call a church a hospital for the broken. And yet, is it not simply a collection of homes? Isn't the church a collection of homes? Why then do we treat our homes as fortresses? Converting third places into havens of home for folks. What does it look like to bring your friends to a restaurant or a bar consistently, where you get to know the owners and the managers, and where you start developing maybe a network where they're introducing you to some other customers, and you're getting to build a relationship that way. So good. Serve, again, that's the S, just meeting felt needs in your community and serving with no expectation, just salt and light work. It doesn't have to be elaborate. My wife and I, sometimes we just take the groceries up for somebody. Super simple. But just, again, how can I, in little ways, bring some salt and light into people's lives? And then sharing the story, okay? So this is spiritual conversation. We talked about gospel fluency and support listening, right? So how can I speak of Jesus in a way people will hear if I have not listened yet to their longings and desires? And so you can really look at Don Everett's Reluctant Witness. That's a great resource for just postures. People are either unreceptive, they're receptive, or they're seeking. And has everyone read Don Everett's? So I don't want to keep going if you have. Okay, maybe not everyone has. So Don says, think about a doorway. Unreceptive people, they do not want to go there with you. So what do? Just befriend. Get to know their longings, their desires, their struggles. I think receptive's the hardest. The door's creaked, but it's up to you now to listen really well, to speak Jesus in a way that is going to hit them a little bit and might give them a different perspective on who he is and what he's done. And to me, seeking's the best. They got questions. They're in. The door's wide open, and they're asking you now about Jesus, and you're clarifying what it looks like to follow him. And so that's good. How does the story of Jesus speak into their story? Okay? And then one more thing, and I'll be quiet. Maybe one story, John.
Yeah,
Can I share a story after this? Okay. Just fruit to root, guys. This is so good. Okay, so we do this together as a community. And again, discipleship sometimes is just so focused on behavior modification, and I really believe if you look at John, what's the chapter, 15? Fruit in the vine, right? If you abide in me, you'll bear much fruit. And so here's what we do, guys. We just say, what do you believe about who you are right now? And we talk a little bit about maybe some things that we didn't do well this week, maybe an area of unbelief, of frustration, of fear. and anxiety or disobedience, area of disobedience we have. And then we ask, what do you believe God has done or not done in that situation? Where do you think he's acted out of character? And then we talk a little bit about, man, I guess I'm thinking this way maybe about God right now. He seems absent. He seems hidden. He seems like he's indifferent. Okay, so I'm trying to change. I'm trying to do better, but he seems indifferent to my situation. And then who do you believe he's like? What do you believe he's like as a result of this? And then this will not be in line with his character, but just speaking it and thinking, man, I think this is what I'm thinking about God right now, and just allowing yourself to speak that into the community. And then as community, you go back then. So you've gone from the bad root to the root, okay, and this is Luther, right? Every sin stems from the first, idolatry. What are you believing about God? And then you go to the root as community together. Who is God? You go to the Word, his true character. We know that he's revealed in the Scriptures. What has he done as revealed in Scripture in the story of our life? Who am I in Christ? And so just really, again, going back to what do we believe about God together as community. I think there's huge importance. Matt's really big into this, going back into the vision. I've heard you talk about that many times. And that's so good. Yeah, kind of eating that each and every day. Why are we doing this? But also, I think, too, what do we believe about God? And just creedally reminding ourselves as community, what do we believe about him? And sometimes it's right. We'll say the Apostles' Creed at church, but I think too, getting specific in the Scriptures about what we believe in his character. Okay, all right. One story, and then I'll share a story of support listening. So we were at a discovery night at our place, and there's Isaac and Ayumi, and from Japan, and they have a Buddhist background. And, oh, baby, yeah, I have no idea, right? Eastern philosophy, way to live your life, but I got no idea. So it's a process for me of support listening. Ayumi, what do you believe? What do you long for? Can you teach me about Buddhism, really, and what it does for you as a person? How does it impact your life? And so Ayumi really taught me a little bit about how, boy, in the West, we're all about individualism. Mm-hmm. We're all about that, and again, Christianizing it, that personal relationship with Jesus. For Ayumi, in her Japanese context, it's actually a lot about the collective, a lot about family, honor, shame. The worst nightmare is to be disconnected from your family. And getting to know Ayumi, her family's back in Japan, and so there's that separation there. And there's a lot of pain there. She's with Isaac. She's at the Maddox. She's with us. So getting to know her story. And then we were at Christmas time. And I'm like, man, we're reading the Christmas story together. And boy, this isn't making any sense to her. Because I'm so... I have it in my sights to say, Ayumi, have you thought about the concept of sin and how the cross would remedy that? That's totally out of her worldview. She has no idea or concept of sin and grace. But we talked a little bit about, and this is so random, but it's a spirit moment. There's a prophecy in Matthew 4 from Hosea, and it says, "Out of Egypt I called my son." Yeah. And so again, the prophecy is all about Jesus standing in for his people, the collective people. And I didn't know this, but that was lightning in a bottle for Ayumi. She was like, what? This guy is standing in for his people to make them what, Ben? And I said, to make them one. To make them one with one another and one with God. And that, for her, was a light bulb moment. It wasn't so much about, Ayumi, you're a sinner and need a grace, even though that's true. And we're going to get there, hopefully. But I think for some of those initial pathways, it's getting to know how they're going to hear the gospel first. And so for Ayumi, for a collective Eastern perspective, really about family, really about the nation, really about the people together, Jesus standing in for people to bring them all together, making them one with one another, one with the Creator, that was a good foot in the door for her to get to know about what Jesus has done. So just an example, a story. There's many, but we ran out of time.
But I do want to mention Whitney and her family.
Sure.
And you can add...
Do you want me to... Okay, yeah.
I just because Whitney was a co-worker
of
one of our lay people.
Yep.
who part of the team.
Part of the team.
And so Ben has been training up the team,
Yep.
and he started to put these things into practice
Yep.
at his workplace. And Whitney was a coworker.
Coworker, yeah, burnt out, by life, and just burnt out by so many things. And Matt had started those conversations with her. We went through spiritual conversations, and he started having those. And and it's cool how the team works. So you go to the breakfast. Whitney's there with Matt, and the invitation was, "Don't come to church, Whitney. Come meet my friend, right? Come meet my friend." And so we're there. We're friends. And then here's how the team works. We get texts, right? Melissa's praying for us, praying over the conversation. So she might not be there, and she might not feel comfortable getting there yet with evangelism, but she's a prayer warrior. She's praying over the conversation, and Matt and I are listening to some of her wounds. And then we talk to her, about just how Jesus is all about grace, and how he is the one who heals our wounds. And it was just, again, for her, lightning in a bottle, and she loved it. And again, she believed the Spirit worked in that moment of just bringing her to Christ. That was one moment for me. Matt had been working with her for months about the conversation, the piece. He had done the legwork, but sometimes it's about bringing that person to someone else. Think about the man who was crippled, right? He needed his friends to bring him through the roof to Jesus. Now, I'm not Jesus, but there's different gifts on the team, and we're working through, we're working together to bring people a fishnet of friendships to Jesus, to his message. And then so her family got baptized. Yeah, so that was cool too.
And so her family got baptized, but they got baptized in a place that's about 2.5 hours away from us.
Yep.
So we're never going to see, never going to see them, but we'll see them in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what matters. And that's the kingdom growth.
Right.
And that's what we're aiming.
And then, so for this model, right, we're cool with that because that ongoing relationship and discipleship can take place after the baptism. So they're in Matagorda, far away, but that's how it's going to go.
Maybe one of those communities is in.
And if they are in this pathway, they might start something. Great.
That's right.
Awesome. Yep.
That'd be super.
Yeah. So, any questions? I know we kind of went through Clinton.
Yeah, so obviously you don't have a necessarily end goal for any of this other than getting people closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
How does the expectation on worship change as you move in that direction?
So that's part of the pathway, Clinton. So the first is belief.
Oh, right.
They believe in Jesus. They come to the waters of baptism, self-identify as church, and then we put on the pieces. Yeah, songs. This was a big thing for me, guys. No songs. That's weird. To an unbaptized person, why are we singing? Yeah, that makes no sense. So really, Clint, we got to get used to, I think, periods of just bare bones liturgy, and just super simple. We still want the gospel to be present if you're doing a discovery night, right? Or else it's not church. And so I think the gospel needs to be preached and proclaimed, but in such a way that it's just going to look different. And we're just going to have to start taking that. Yeah. Yeah. So, does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
Do you ever actually introduce formal theology?
That's part of the ongoing process. Yep. So that's after the self-identifying and putting on the pieces. Yeah. Baptism. What does it mean? Lord's Supper. All those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we certainly see we have a whole confession and everything that we hold to. But if you kind of go back to scriptures, the confessional statements are really, really simple. With Paul, it's about the resurrection. It ties into there. With John, when you read John's writings, it's about believing that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. I mean, they're very simple confessional statements in the scriptures. And so we really kind of want to get back to simple confessional statements. Now, we know that what he's teaching, and this is why you have a missionary like this, what he's teaching, we know is theologically sound and how he's doing it. And so in the training that he's doing, both with the apostolic team and the new leaders that are being raised up within those communities, is going to be sound. And as he goes off with the team and starts a new community, he's still going to stay in touch with the new community that's been formed.
Yeah, the leader there.
To make sure that those things are right and proper. But it's probably not going to necessarily look like confirmation, or that kind of thing.
Yep.
But honestly, simple confessions in Jesus, and that's the early church. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So if, not disagreement, the word's escaping me right now, but
Yeah.
conflict of beliefs come into it,
Yeah.
theirs versus the Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
How do you handle that then?
With the apostolic team, or with a new believer that has emerged.
I think he's talking about probably the new community, I think.
The-
Yeah, so
the new
you're
believer?
building this new community up, and
Yeah.
you're talking about baptism
Right. Right.
comes up. But
Yeah.
then someone goes, yeah, there's no way a baby should ever be baptized.
Okay. Yeah. For sure.
Then-
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of the I would say the messy, ongoing formation. Yeah.
Kind of say, yeah, some people do believe that,
Yeah.
and others believe this.
Mhm.
Or, well, I believe this.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think there's
Yeah.
a messiness, but I think there's also the questions that are important to us are not the same questions that are important to
Yeah.
new believers.
Yeah.
I think their questions are much more
Yeah.
basic. When you take an Ayumi, like talking about,
Actually, I do have some. Could I,
Yeah.
really quick? We probably won't run into that, and here's why. We're not doing transfer. We're not doing people from a previous church experience. That's a conversation for a previous church experience, previous denomination. Our target audience really is no conception of the gospel. Yeah. And we're kind of strict on it with our reaching and whatnot. And I'll tell you, the pace is killer. So the timeline, I feel like, for building a church, getting the property done, at least you got something that you're kind of, with this, we're really relying, I mean, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right, with the blessed rhythms and our life together, but we're really relying on the Spirit for, Lord, we're preaching, let's convert these folks, please, God, please. And so I don't know if someone with a previous no conception of God is going to have that, because they're going to be so under this new reality of Jesus that we're going to be teaching, we're going to be pouring into them. Yeah, and we've already seen that happen. So the conversations are so different, and they're just so ripe. And I'm learning about that, because I'm like, yeah, how do I talk to, well, I guess, that denomination, that's not going to happen because this person just doesn't have the Lord in their life. They don't have no sense, about Him. So, yeah, it's just different. And I think if you're doing this, you got to accept the pace. That with someone with the previous conception of God, it might be quicker to get a church burnt person in, and God bless the people who are doing that ministry. We're not against that at all, and I hope you guys haven't found that this model is something that's antithesis, but we're just feeling our yearning, our longing is unbaptized, no conception of God, the gospel folks. And they're in Katy, they're everywhere, but I think there's this disconnect of, you see church buildings, so I'm sure people have somewhat of a conception. Most of the time they don't. Yeah.
I think, Matt, you had another question?
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say what you were saying. The lost people I've worked with are just blank slate.
Yeah.
So, church is what you make it.
What you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? So we're learning a lot, and he's the one who's doing most of the learning. I just can't tell you how blessed we are at Memorial to have. Ben has an absolute evangelist heart, and yet he is so comfortable within the church and with us that it really creates, honestly, I believe, the perfect dynamic. If I were looking for a model, I think it just fits really well to have someone who is part of your church, but yet their mission is there, and there's a permission to do so, and it's sending, and I just think it really works really great. It gives us time to work what needs to be worked, because it's not a fast thing, and I think there's still a place for planting churches that are buildings and structures and everything else. Now, my goal would for those to be sending churches.
Right.
That if all of our churches were sending churches,
Yeah.
then we'd have these little things all over, and we'd have the church in all these little places, and that would be my
Yeah.
my dream for it.
And I'm no prophet, but you listen to Will Mancini, right? He did some work on this. He really thinks that the future is these established congregations giving margin for these experiments, and that it's not going to be right? It's not going to be established or house church. They're going to start working together more, I think, and I think it's going to be great because you're going to have the financial capital with the established churches. Then you're going to have these missionaries who might have other streams of income, but again, they're going to have these permissions to go and do these things. Yeah, and and it's a lot of permission of local leaders too. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. I don't know if you have any other questions. I know we had a lot of information, and I hope we didn't just brush through it too fast for y'all.
So I hope it blessed you guys. And
if you have questions,
can we pray, John? Let's pray really quick, guys. Yeah, I'm sorry. Lord, as you send us as harvest workers with your Spirit. And so, Lord, I just ask, even just one thing from today, Lord, that you would help us contemplate, that you would increase our faith in your character and who you've made us to be, that would pour out in our neighborhoods, that would pour out in our communities. Lord, that you'd give us just one person right now on our minds, on our hearts, that we could partner with in seeking the lost, but also, Lord, neighbor upon neighbor who do not know you. Lord, give us the strength and the wisdom to connect them to the church, but also, Lord, just to your life. And so, Lord, make us to be this way by the power of the Spirit and increase in us your gifts. In Jesus' name, amen.
And I just leave you guys saying, if you have questions for us about something you're trying, or if you have ideas for us, we'd love to hear your ideas as we work that together. Mostly just to know that if you've been thinking like we have, with the same angst and the same longings, there are people trying to do that.
Yeah.
And we can learn together. In the
Can I
process.
share something?
Yeah.
Kathy.
I have the privilege of being part of Memorial, and from someone who is not on the apostolic team, I have seen in my life and my husband's and the other people in the church that this right here has re-engaged and just revitalized a lot of people in our church, and I've seen a change in myself just in the last couple of years. There's an excitement for this, what God is calling Ben to do, but also for what he's calling us to do within our church. So that's the other side where I've seen a great benefit, and I just wanted to share that with you.